So today behind me I've got a little bay, 3 metres by 2.4. I'm going to apply the airless finish today in this bay. Ideally what I want to do is I'm going to blow these joints over and I'm going to get the first and second coat on, and what I'm going to use is a fan to assist the drying time in between coats. I want to talk a little bit about the preparation side of things because there seems to be some mixed messages out there around what's needed before applying the airless finish to get that level 5 finish. So here's our ball joint. At this stage all I've done is actually bedded the tape and I've filled to the shoulder of the taper. This is sort of a one-stage process, if you like. You put the product into the actual taper of the joint itself, you bed the tape into that. You want ideally 1 mil product behind that, making sure you've got enough product there for the tape to stick. You can see I've used paper tape. It's the only tape actually recognised within the standards. You shouldn't be using anything else. So we've put the paper tape on, we've filled to the shoulder. Now if we were taping and jointing from here, we'd add 2 additional passes and we'd be increasing it by 50 mil each side per pass. And we've got the drying time in between. So this is where the confusion comes with airless. A lot of people think we've still got to do them 3 stages and we actually don't. If we've got our joint nice and level at this stage, so we've filled to the shoulder, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same product, the airless finish itself, and I'm going to blow these joints over. So I'm going to blow a tight line over these joints, just slightly wider, and I'm going to blade that in with a spat. Just to level it off, just take that, basically it looks like an orange peel if you like, the texture. So I'm just going to level that off, push the product in, let that firm up and pull in slightly prior to actually applying the first coat of airless. So you can see I've blown all these joints over. I've actually gone around the internals and down the walls themselves. I've blown them over. Actually, I'm not going to actually spat them in. I'm just going to let that pull in on its own. It will leave a slight texture, but what we can do with the first and second coat, we can start losing that because that's when we're going to do all the sort of spatting and troweling up anyway. So That's put a bit of product on there that will pull in, that will fill out all them little indentations. Same on the joints. While that's pulling in, I'm going to go and grab a cup of tea. So I've given that about 10-15 minutes, enough time to drink a cup of tea. And then I'm going to go in with my first coat. So initially I'm going to start with the ceiling. I'm going to blow it right away across into the corner, get that done, spat that off, and then I'll move on to the walls. be fooled into try to hide the paper. If you try to hide the paper, you're going to put way too much product on the wall. You're going to end up scraping a lot of that off with a spat. Lots will go on the floor. It ends up a little bit messy. So less is more. You're just trying to get some product on the wall at this stage. When you come to the second coat, because that product's there, the suction's higher, and it feels, second coat feels like it's got a little bit more body to it. So it'll pull in, you can work with it a little bit more. So we're gonna put my big industrial fan on this bay now, blow some air in here, probably give it an hour and a half-ish, and then come back in, see what it looks like, see if we can get that second coat on. If not, I'll give it a little bit longer, but I certainly know by the end of the day, it'll be done. So, I left that for about an hour and 20 minutes-ish. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start moving on to the second coat. You can see there's still some areas that's holding a bit of moisture, but the actual surface itself is actually firmed up. It's not dragging anymore, it's firmed up, and I can start putting that second coat on. Initially I'm going to go around and do all the internal corners, so I'm going 400 to 600 down, likewise across the ceiling I'll be doing the internal corners on the walls as well. I'm going to spat them off. That's broke the room down into separate panels, so I can work on the ceiling and each individual wall separately, so I'm going to crack on with that now, alright? So that's it, all the internals done. I haven't been too precious at this point about actually getting really neat on the actual, right on the internal itself. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get a corner trail. I'm going to let that pull in. That's the upside of doing these internal corners. It's pulling in a little bit. It's going to start firming up as a product. And when we start using the corner trail, we'll be able to get nice tight lines. They're the important things. They're the things that sort of people look at when they enter a room. So I'm going to leave that now. I'm going to move on to the walls and the actual ceiling. So that's the second coat done. So all I'm going to do now is I'm actually just going to run around, a little bit of water, sash brush. I'm just literally just brush around the internals. Got my little corner trowel, use whatever you like. This is my preferred one, it's a 90-degree angle. Just going to run around and just get all them internal corners tidied up. Currently there's a couple of little holes I can see. I want to get them filled and get some nice tight lines, so I'm going to get on that now. So that's the internal corners all done. I've just basically gone round with a corner trowel and I've just got some nice tight lines in there, so it's going to look good on finish. Backtracking through the day, 7:30 this morning I came in, I used a chemical set, Knaufs Joint Fitter Premium, on the ball joints and the internal corners, just to do that first pass. We don't need to do any more like you would do with taping and jointing. We feel to the shoulder, that's all we need to do. I left that till around about 10:30, and then I utilised Knaufs Airless Finish and I blew over all them joints just to fill out any imperfections, just hide that paper a little bit more. So I've done that, we left that for 15 minutes to let that product pull in and firm up, and then I put the first coat on. First coat, less is more. We don't need to try to hide the paper. A lot of people fall into that trap and you put too much product on the wall. We're just getting product on there. All the magic happens on the second coat. So we put the first coat on, that's when I set up a commercial fan and just literally got the air flowing in this space. So I left it for 1 hour and 20 minutes with that fan on it, which actually dried the product quite nice. Everything was firm, and as I showed you, run your hand across the joint itself, any wet areas, and it didn't drag. So I then moved on to the second coat. So I've done all the internal corners, spattered them off, levelled them off. It broke the room down into separate sections, so ceilings and walls individually, and I can just work through them as and when I need to. I put that second coat on and flattened the whole surface off. Tomorrow morning, this will be nice and dry. So tomorrow morning we can look at sanding this and decorating, so we won't have to wait the 3-4 days for drying times. We do a course here at Knauf where we teach you how to use Knaufs Airless Finish. It's a short duration course which is accredited by CITB. If you're interested, please get in touch.